The Clippers are a very interesting team. They were 42-40 and finished as the 9th seed after losing in the play-in tournament. This would seem like an unsuccessful season when you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on your roster, but there's more going on here than a disappointing 9th seed finish. So, we're going to talk about why the Clippers, a team that didn't even make the playoff last season, might actually be the best team in the NBA heading into next season. Before we move on, I want to remind you to leave a like if you enjoy the video, subscribe so you know when new content drops, plus it really helps out the channel. So let's keep it moving. First, let's talk about the Clippers roster. The obvious elephant in the room is that Kawhi Leonard did not play any games due to his ACL injury, but I want to talk about Paul George. PG had an interesting season. He was coming off a great playoff run where he led the Clippers to their first Western Conference Finals after Kawhi got injured. I think we all need to agree that he shook off the pandemic P nickname. Last season, Paul George averaged 24.3 points per game, almost 7 rebounds a game, and almost 6 assists a game on 53% true shooting. Pretty decent numbers. However, he only played in 31 games, which is actually the lowest amount of games he played since that horrific injury back in 2014. The main reason is the elbow injury in December that kept him out. He also did not play in the play-in game, which the Clippers ended up losing. Positive news about his availability last season is that that was just a freak injury where he fell on his elbow. It's not something that should be affecting him next season. This summer, we already got to see him play ball after rehabbing, where he was at the Rico Hines runs, and you can see in these runs, he looked great. The jump shot looked great. You can see he's operating at his peak right now. I think PG has genuinely improved from that bubble performance, especially mentality wise. So next season, he will be more than capable to lead the team while Kawhi gets back to his peak condition. If the Clippers are a high seed or win games, Paul George is going to be an all-star again. Now let's talk about the rest of the squad. Last season, the players showed improvement and some great defensive chemistry. The Clippers had the 8th best defensive rating. They also showed a ton of heart. Not playing with your 2 best players is tough for any team. Reggie Jackson proved that he can be the starting point guard. He averaged almost 17 points per game, 3.6 rebounds a game, and 4.8 assists a game. They still have Nick Batum, who is an underrated stretch big man. He shot 40% from 3 in back-to-back seasons since he's been with the Clippers. He fits really well with Kawhi and PG, and he's actually like a really switchable defender. The Clippers also have other stretch forwards like Marcus Morris, Robert Covington. Terrence Mann is also a great two-way guard that doesn't get the attention that he deserves. Now, let's not forget, Norman Powell was a huge addition that was not talked about much last season. He's going to be a huge boost for the team, especially when they're fully healthy. He's a good scorer, and the great part about Norman Powell is that he's efficient. He shows flashes of defense, but also has many moments of bad defense and missed defensive rotations. Luke Kennard, he's another player that had a great shooting season last year too. And now in the offseason this summer, they also added John Wall in free agency. John Wall has to come off the bench at this point in his career, but he can still score and playmate. The only issue with John Wall is his health and his age. He hasn't played an NBA game in 1 calendar year, and since 2017, that's over the last 5 seasons, he's only played 113 games. So chances are high that he looks really bad, especially on defense. Now, the Clippers' team success last season, despite injuries to Kawhi and Paul George, that was unexpected. The Clippers ended the season with a 42-40 record with the 8th best defensive rating. Unfortunately, they had the 24th best offensive rating, but this is going to be fixed next season when you have Paul George and Kawhi returning. Last season, they were also 18-13 when Paul George played. The problem was that they had stretches where they would win games in a row, but immediately someone would get injured, go into health and safety protocols. It was just a bad luck season overall. So let's leave last season's bad vibes behind and let's look ahead at what the team will look like when Kawhi returns and what they'll look like next season. The two-way duo of Kawhi and PG is probably the best in the league when they actually play though. PG will hopefully play most of the season. Kawhi will obviously have load management games off coming back from his ACL injury, but when they play together, it's pretty obvious how difficult it is to beat the Clippers. Depth was the main reason they did not flame out last year. Next season though, they're going to have even more depth. They added John Wall, they kept Nick Batum, and they still have Kennard, Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Serge Ibaka, Robert Covington, Eric Bledsoe, whole lot of experienced NBA players. They also have a ton of scoring on the team outside of Kawhi and PG. And me personally, coaching wise, I'm a huge fan of Ty Lue's coaching. He's a very high IQ coach. He was the coach that led LeBron James to a title in Cleveland and was the assistant coach on the Lakers when they won as well. So he was a key factor for last season's success. And he's only going to get better when his star players play more games next season. Speaking of the next season, let's compare the Clippers, how they're going to perform compared to the rest of the Western Conference. The Warriors are obviously going to be back and probably even better. They will have more playing time with Kuminga, James Wiseman. Even though they've lost a couple of rotation players, they're going to be getting more experience for their younger stars. The Suns will be just as good with Ayton re-signing. It does depend on what they do with him in the future though, but for now, they should have pretty much the same success they had last season. The Grizzlies are going to be a top team again with Ja Morant, but the Mavs, they got Luka Doncic. It does depend if they can actually get a real replacement for Jalen Brunson. I think they'll be better because of Christian Wood, and of course, more time playing with Dinwiddie, who has advantages compared to Brunson in terms of height. Minnesota, I think, is going to be even better than the 7th seed that they were last year, now with the Rudy Gobert trade. Pelicans, they're definitely going to be better than last year because Zion's going to be returning, and the Lakers are going to be better as long as they have LeBron. They're a threat. You can never count out LeBron James in the playoffs, but only the Warriors and maybe the Grizzlies or Pelicans have the depth. Grizzlies and Pelicans depth is probably a little more unproven, but the Clippers will have the best depth, very high level superstar duo as their 2 lead scorers, and one of the best coaches in the league. So for all those reasons, I'm excited to see how the Clippers do next year. I'm excited to see Paul George ball out, but I'm most excited to see the return of Kawhi Leonard. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe so you can catch up on new videos when they drop. And again, thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you next time.